Absolutely, Maddie, and we're less than now an hour away, of course, from the opening session for the Aramco IPO. A lot of questions, of course, over the last several weeks in particular about how this stock's going to trade when it goes live. And I got to tell you, the mood here has been one of excitement, heightened anticipation of what all of this means, not just, of course, for Aramco itself, but more broadly, Vision 2030. Mohammed bin Salman's leadership as Crown Prince. And frankly, I got to tell you, from folks that we've been speaking to on the ministerial level, as you heard earlier in the show, and also in terms of the investor sentiment, a lot of positivity. Some 5 million Saudis got involved in this IPO. That's 13% of this country's population. Listen in to what one manager was telling me, Zachary Cefaratti, Dalma Capital's CEO. Dalma Capital, of course, is a firm that's basically offering products to investors for non-Saudi investors to get involved in this IPO. I asked him to walk us through the numbers. Listen in.
We think today is going to be a very interesting day for trading, and that's principally going to be driven by simple laws of supply and demand. The institutional tranche of the offering was 623% oversubscribed. So institutions that were seeking to allocate shares in Aramco are finding that they received around 14% of the bid that they put in for on average. We've spoken to some managers that received even less than 10% of what they bid for in Aramco. Anyone who is benchmarked against a major index that Aramco will be a composite of, 10% of the local TASI index, and within 2 weeks, around 0.5% of the MSCI, FTSE, and S&P emerging market indices will need to have some weighting of Aramco if they're actively managed, and will need to be equal weight Aramco if they're passively managed. So managers finding that they only receive 14% of the Aramco shares that they bid for are going to need to go into the market and buy. Now, the other supply side is who's going to be selling in the market today. It's difficult to understand who the seller is because the retail tranche of the offering, which was 1/3 of the overall offering, went to 5 million Saudi investors. Those Saudi investors received 10% more shares in the form of bonus shares by holding their shares for 180 uninterrupted days. Forfeiting those bonus shares is a big cost for them, it's a big opportunity cost. So it's not obvious who's going to be selling into the market today, with all the institutions significantly underweight their target allocation, and with retail investors disincentivized to sell. We also see a justification for evaluation of Aramco up to and potentially above $2 trillion. So we think price action over the next few days is going to be very interesting.
Now, this is something that's been a continuous conversation, as you very well know, Maddie, whether or not we're going to actually see the valuation of Aramco popping above $2 trillion. Lots of folks telling me that it would be unsurprising if we saw Saudi institutions propping up the price in the next couple of days. That's not something that they haven't done before. You'll remember, of course, they did get into the market to prop up the market following the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, for example. So it's not something that's beyond the pale, certainly, for these investors. But I think it's really interesting to note, I mean, when we're talking about the size of the Saudi Tadawul, the local stock market here in Saudi Arabia, this is the biggest economy in the region. The Tadawul is the biggest heavily weighted index in the region. By the time Aramco lists, we're talking about the fact that this is going to be the 9th largest index in the world. Lots of questions about what that actually means, not just for Saudi Arabia, but for the Vision 2030, as you very well know. And now we're even talking about the potential, something we didn't even talk about a month or so ago, of an international listing as early as Q1. Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now, to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.